Darkcast Network, bringing our indie podcasts out of the shadows.
Just before we dive into this week's episode, here's a promo.
Hello, I'm Kona Gallagher.
And I'm Ethan Flick.
We're the husband and wife team behind the true crime podcast, And Then They Were Gone.
We're a weekly show that covers unsolved missing persons cases. These are cases that you, the listener, can have an impact on.
That's right. Each week, we bring you a new case of someone who has gone missing and needs their story told. Some of the people you may have heard of, like Kristen Smart or Braceless Pisa. But we also bring you missing people of color and other cases that haven't gotten the mainstream attention that they deserve. We cover the missing person's life and delve into the investigation and media coverage.
One thing that we've learned in the nearly 2 years of doing this podcast is that a lot of these cases could be solved if pressure was put on the investigative agencies to do more. Our hope is that by getting these stories out there, you'll help us put that pressure on them.
So come along with us as we tell these stories, and maybe you hold the key to bringing someone home. And Then They Were Gone is a proud member of the Darkcast Network and Spreaker Prime. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or your favorite podcast app.
Welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And we're back for another episode.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
So Jill, it's your episode today.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it called?
Murder in the Family.
Okay. And where are we?
We're in the UK.
Okay, shall we dive in?
Yeah, let's dive in. So before we start, just going to apologise for not being able to pronounce words.
Oh, there's a surprise. I think people would actually be more surprised if you went through a whole episode and got it all right.
I was actually just thinking there, maybe I should just do that at the start of every episode, no matter, because it's not just like, I mean, I just can't talk in general, can I? So I should just, any case, no matter where they're from or...
And you thought doing a podcast was a great idea when you can't talk?
Hey, we're doing fine, right? Our podcast is good.
Well, matter of opinion, I suppose, but hey, we think it is.
Yeah, we think it is.
We're biased.
Yeah. Anyway, right, let's dive in. So, Banaz Mahmod was born on the 16th of December 1985. She was 20 years old when she died, and she was a Kurdish woman who was born in northern Iraq, but now lived in Mitcham, South London, England. So her family were from the rural Merodale tribal area of Qualadiza in Iraq, and her dad was Mahmoud Babakir Mahmoud, and her mum was Baya. Banaz had four brothers and she didn't. She had four sisters and a brother. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Banaz was murdered by her family, as they say that she dishonoured them.
Oh right.
So this is an honour killing. So the family sought asylum in the UK in 1995 when Banaz was 10. One of her sisters, Bakal, said that Banaz's nickname was Nazca, which means softness, because she was just lovely, gentle, you know. So, unfortunately, Bakal is in hiding because she testified against her own family. Oh, right. And she wears a veil because she has to hide her identity.
Right, okay.
So she was in a documentary, but they had to change her voice. She had to have the veil on because she's terrified.
Right, okay.
So the men of their family held traditional cultural beliefs that their honour and their status in the community depend on the control of their women. So Banaz's dad, Mahmoud, was the eldest of four brothers living in the South London area. But although he was the eldest, it was actually his younger brother, Ari Aga Mahmoud, who took the role of head of the family.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that was because he was the richest, had more money, he was wealthy, so...
So he sort of had the...
Yeah, which...
Overall...
Yeah, I would have thought he would have been the eldest, but, you know...
Well, money talks.
Yeah, that's... In this family, anyway, that's the way that it worked, just because he was the wealthy one.
Right.
So, Banaz's sister, Bakal, she was the first to rebel against the family's strict rules, and of course her father wasn't having it. Mm-hmm. She wasn't allowed to have long nails or pluck her eyebrows or wear perfume, And when she went against the rules, she would get nasty beatings. She left home just before she turned 16, and she actually went into foster care.
Right.
But in that community, a daughter leaving home can bring shame on the family.
Uh-huh.
So it's about your family's reputation and how you're perceived by others. So if a family has a woman that doesn't conform, then that's going to impact upon them because their behaviour reflects not upon themselves, but upon everyone around them, like the whole family, the whole community.
Right, okay.
So in 2002, Bacall said that they tried to remove the dishonour of her leaving home. Her brother asked to meet her, and she said that he lured her to a remote location and he got her to carry a suitcase. He told her to walk along the path in front of him, and he told her not to turn around to see what he was doing. Then he hit her over the head with a dumbbell, you know, the weights, yeah. So heavy.
Wow.
And then he put his arm around her neck and, you know, was trying to strangle her, and he almost lifted her off her feet because he was, you know, pulling that tightly.
Mm-hmm.
But because she started panicking and was trying to get herself free, and she managed to bite his arm,
right.
And then she kicked his knee, and he let go of her.
Uh-huh.
So she started screaming at him, saying, like, look, what are you doing? Like, you actually just tried to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he stopped for a minute and he started crying. And he said he was really sorry. And he said, quote, I'm the big boy, I'm the big man after my dad. I have to do this. I have to put this shame to an end, end quote. And he then went on to tell Bacall that their dad had actually paid him to do it. So their dad had paid him to kill his sister, his own daughter.
That's been awful for the son.
For both of them, yeah. I mean,
I'm sure about that.
Alexa?
Oh, that was Alexa. Shit. Yeah, I mean, yeah, to be in either of those positions must have been horrendous.
Oh, totally.
Bacall didn't press charges because no matter what in the community, no matter what your family does to you, you still don't want they still try to protect each other. So they, you know, so she didn't press charges against him because
she didn't want him to get in trouble.
Because that's my dad, that's my brother, like, you know.
Yeah.
So but after that she went into hiding as she was obviously scared for her life.
Yeah.
Because she was like, well, if my dad's tried to have me killed once, then he's probably going to try again. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that was just a little bit about Bacall. So now, we're going to go on to Banaz now. So Banaz, she was married in 2003 when she was only 17. It was an arranged marriage to a man that she'd only met once before. He was 10 years older than her. He was illiterate and he was basically just off the plane from Iraq. Her husband took her to live in Coventry in the West Midlands, which is about an hour and 40 minutes away from her home. Mm-hmm. So she was kind of isolated. I mean, an hour and 40 minutes, you know, it's quite a bit, isn't it? It's not just round the corner.
No, exactly.
So Bacall went to visit her one day and she told Banaz that she looked run down, and Banaz told her that she wasn't enjoying her life. She said that she was doing exactly what her husband told her to do. He was physically, verbally and emotionally abusing her. He would tell her that all she was good for was for being a housewife and nothing else. So after 2 years of marriage, she left him and moved back to the family home in London. So in October of that year, 2005, Banaz went to a police station in Croydon, London, to make a statement about the way that her husband had treated her. Mm-hmm. Because it happened in Coventry, she was interviewed by officers from the West Midlands Police. So Banaz was asked to describe her relationship from the start. She told the officers that he was a strict husband. Whenever he wanted to have sex, it was just his way, always his way. Whenever she said no, he wasn't having it. He wouldn't take no for an answer, and he would just rape her anyway.
Right.
If she tried to stop him, then he would slap her or he would pull her hair. Mm-hmm. And he told her that he would kill her if she told anyone.
Right.
I mean, at 17 years old, Banaz didn't even know if this was normal, like, or if it was just in her culture, you know, or if it happened in all marriages all over, you know, in every culture all over the world. Yeah, she didn't know any different. Mm-hmm. So he just raped her whenever and wherever he liked. He made her believe that her family loved him more than they loved her, and he could do whatever he liked because her family were far away and she had no one except him.
Right.
So the beatings started to come more often, so Banaz started writing it down in a diary, and she took photos of the injuries he caused her and the state of her clothes that he had ripped off her. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, her husband found the diaries and the photos and he destroyed them.
Oh dear.
So she did have one set of photos that she had managed to keep hidden from him, and they were from when he had kicked her in the head so much that her lips and her ears were bleeding. one time he twisted her hand so tightly that one of the bones on her wrist was still sticking out.
Oh.
You know, that if you've got the bone on the sort of right hand side of your wrist, that bone was like it's still stuck out.
Ow.
So Banaz said that her husband kicked her in the head so much that she would now suffer from memory loss, and whenever she cleaned her ears, they would bleed. So there was obviously damage done there.
Definitely,
yeah.
And did she not seek medical help?
Well, she didn't say that she did, so...
I mean, I suppose it would be a difficult one because she wouldn't want to explain how she
got her injuries, yeah. So maybe she felt that she couldn't seek medical advice. She hadn't told her family about the abuse, but one of her other sisters found out and told the rest of the family. And when the husband was confronted by her parents, he said, yes, I do beat your daughter, and it's because she is disrespectful. He also said, I do force her to have sex, but it's only when she says no. Which is an absolutely ridiculous thing to say, because you wouldn't have to force her if she consented.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So he's going, no, I only rape her when she says, I only force her when she says no. What?
Well, yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, if she was consenting to the sex, you wouldn't have to force her.
Well, exactly, so of course it's only going to be when she says no.
Yeah.
But she's saying no, so that should be respected, but...
Obviously not.
Obviously not.
Unfortunately, our family found this to be acceptable and sent her back to her husband to try harder and to be a better wife. So Banaz left him several times and went back to her parents, but they just kept sending her back. They would have family meetings where the whole family would sit down, and she would be told that she would be putting shame on the family if she got divorced or separated from her husband, so she had to go back to him. So the final straw for her one day was that she had a coffee in her hand, and she was sitting watching TV, and her husband said to her, "Look at yourself in the mirror, you've become so skinny and ugly." He told her that she was nothing but a whore, and something must have just snapped for her. Mm-hmm. She must have just been like, do you know what? Nah.
Yeah.
And the reason why she was so skinny was because she was obviously under stress, and she was getting beaten up and raped, I'm sure that affected her appetite.
Of course,
yeah. So she was just like, nah, I've had enough. So she called her mum and she told her she wanted to get a divorce no matter what. She was like, nah, that's it, had enough, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. And she was really angry. She was shouting down the phone at her mum that she wanted out of this marriage and she was leaving that day. You know, that afternoon she was out. Mm-hmm. Which, totally understandable.
Yeah, but it's just a shame that obviously she couldn't really call on her family for support because they obviously, in their culture, they find that...
Yeah, they were the ones that were sending her back.
And they were saying that she was the one that was doing wrong because she was disrespecting her husband and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was, and it's a shame that she couldn't, I said, go to them for support. And
yeah, I know, because that's who you would normally go to, isn't it? But, obviously this is the families are the ones who she can't go to. Mm-hmm. These are the ones that are kind of making her go through this.
Yeah.
So she packed some stuff and left, and she wasn't going back. She'd had enough. But of course, leaving her husband in her culture isn't allowed, and her sister Bakal said it's the worst thing for a woman to do.
Really? Wow.
So I'm not sure how long after she left her marriage, but she did find a guy that she liked of her own choosing, Banaz. So they had started out as friends, but they got closer and it developed into a relationship. Banaz loved him, they planned to have kids and even picked names for their future children. They were in love. And Banaz...
Which is how it should be.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way it is in our culture,
exactly.
And that's the way that we know it.
Yeah.
And, well, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, to me, obviously getting married is a massive deal, and, a relationship, and, obviously you want to be genuinely in love with that person and,
mm-hmm.
Have that connection, whereas if you're just, obviously just at the arranged marriage side of it, obviously these people don't met each other.
They don't know each other, yeah.
How do they have that connection? And
yeah, so there's a massive difference between an arranged marriage, obviously, and actually meeting somebody and falling in love with the whole process of just falling in love. And this is what happened for her. So this must have been, it would have been totally new and, magical and all the rest.
Yeah.
So Banaz would text him every morning as soon as she got up, and she would text him every night before she went to bed. They kept their relationship a secret, though, because they knew that the community was watching. Women in these communities are under constant surveillance, so that it can be seen if they were behaving appropriately. So they're always being watched. So after Banaz left her husband, she was constantly worrying that men were following her when she was out. She noticed that one guy was following her, and she recognised him as she hadn't met him before, but she'd seen him at sort of weddings and other sort of events.
Yeah.
So he was obviously in the community. And she said that as soon as she left the house, he was following her in a car. So he must have been like waiting outside her house for her. He shouted her name and she turned around, and he said that he should give her a lift. But she just like put her head down and kept walking, so he just kept following her. And that was the reason why she went into the police station that day, because she was being followed by this guy.
Right.
So in October 2005, she thought, right, okay, I'm scared.
Yeah.
So she went to the police station. And basically she knew that something was probably going to happen to her, so she wanted the police to know what was going on.
Uh-huh.
So the interviewing officer told Banaz that if she was ever worried for her own safety, to contact the police straight away. And Banaz asked, well, now that I've given you this statement, what can you do for me? Like, can you protect me? And, the officer replied that Banaz had given them lines of inquiry that they would need to follow up on, and they would let her know what was happening, and she would be kept informed and up to date as to how the investigation was going.
Right.
So obviously by going to the police, Banaz was putting herself at a massive risk.
Of course.
But the investigating officers did nothing to investigate her claims or track her husband down.
Right.
It took them 3 months just to write up a statement for Banaz to sign. And it wasn't just like Banaz, it wasn't like she had just sat back and hoped they would get on with it. She went to the police station at least 5 times. But yet they missed all the signs that she was in great danger. Like, how? How did they miss that? This woman is going in and telling them exactly what's happening.
Exactly. And I mean, alright, they might not be 100% familiar with the culture, but then I suppose in a police, you must be familiar with other people's cultures, because it's not the first time this has probably happened.
Well, no, I'll sort of tell you later what the sort of statistics are, but I mean, we're talking about London. Maybe if something like that was to happen in maybe smaller rural areas, then they wouldn't have a clue. But this is London. London is a cultural place. There's lots of different cultures in London. But the thing is, though, whether they're used to dealing with this culture or not, at the end of the day, if a woman, any woman, or any person is going into a police station and saying, I think I'm in danger, I think something's going to happen to me, they should be taking that seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it shouldn't be about... At this point, this should not be about culture, about them investigating it.
It should be just about a woman that's coming to the position, she's fearing for her life, and they're not really doing
anything to
help.
To help her, basically. So, 2 months after she went to the police, Banaz and her boyfriend Ramat, I don't think I mentioned his name earlier. No, his name was Ramat. So they were spotted kissing by members of the local community outside a tube station. And this person was like straight on the phone to the head of the family, Ari, saying, guess what, I've just seen your niece doing. So a meeting was then called at Ari's house, and all the men of the extended family were invited, and a decision was made there and then to kill Banaz.
Wow.
So 2 days after the family meeting, Banaz went to the police station again to make another statement, and she said that she had heard her uncle saying that she was going to be killed. And a week after that, she handed in a letter to the police identifying 5 family members that she said was going to murder her. So she's in there giving them names, telling them what's going to happen.
And they still haven't done anything.
But at this point, she actually did say that she didn't want the police to take action. So there again, we've got the thing with not still trying to protect her family. But to me, should that not be the police's duty? Even if she says, I don't want you to take action, but then the police might be putting her at more of a bigger risk by investigating. See, isn't it the classic case of, well, they haven't actually done anything yet, so maybe
the police haven't got a right to go in and investigate potentially? Well,
the police didn't investigate any further. So, and as I said, like, it obviously seems strange to us that Banaz still wanted to protect her family, but with honour killings, many young people who are in great danger don't want to get their family in trouble. Maybe they think, well, that's the way it works in our culture, they have to do it. Maybe that's just because that's the way that they're brought up to think. Like, they can't help having to kill me. Like, I've disrespected them, so they're going to have to kill me, so I don't want them to get in trouble.
I know,
but
it's hard for us to understand that because it's obviously not our culture. I mean, but it just doesn't sound right at all. And it's not right in our minds, obviously. But
no killing's right.
No,
exactly. Put it that way. If, even though they haven't done anything yet, but they are conspiring to kill, and no matter, as I've said before, no matter who it is, whether it's a male, a female, whatever culture, whatever country, it's wrong.
Yeah, totally.
So a few weeks later, after she handed that letter to the police, Banaz's dad told her to come to a relative's house for a meeting. So this was on New Year's Eve, 2005. And her dad said that she had to come and discuss her divorce. So he got her to carry in a suitcase into the house and he brought brandy. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but when Bacall was getting attemptedly murdered by her brother...
Told to bring a suitcase.
Yeah, and I kind of picked up on that and I thought, oh, what was with the suitcase? So I did actually Google it and I didn't really get a definitive answer, but what I think that means is that's to put their body in.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. But then did they not know that then? Like, if you get asked to bring the suitcase, I mean, is she...
Well, I think he got her to... I think he gave her the suitcase when she got there. I think she got maybe met her at the door or met her wherever and said, right, here's the suitcase. So she knew, she did know. But we'll get on to that. So he forced Banaz to drink some brandy and told her to sit down and look at the TV and not to turn around and look at him. So this is another thing as well. When they're going to kill them, they won't let them look at them, and I think...
Yeah. That's because you don't want them looking at what you're about to do. But
she did turn around and look at her dad, and she saw that he was coming up behind her wearing rubber gloves and realised that she was going to be killed.
But then, did she not... I don't know, I mean, maybe it's just me. Of everything that she's been through and knowing already that she's going to be killed, the fact that she was invited to talk about her divorce, which they obviously don't allow, then I would have been thinking, well, are they going to kill me then? The fact that she's probably turned up there knowing that already.
Well, she knows that. She knows that she's going to be killed. She knows sooner or later she's going to be killed, and they have to do it.
I know, but then I'd run away. I don't know.
Because she's too scared to run away, probably. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, if you're conditioned to think, well, he has to do it.
Went into hiding, so she's prepared to do that.
But they'd already tried to kill her. I don't know. We can't.
No.
We can't judge anybody.
It's difficult, knowing that you're going to be killed, and you would actually still turn up to where your father's asked you to go. I don't know.
But as I said, they're conditioned to think that the men are in control. The men are the heads of the family. They control everything what's happening. So if that's my dad is going to have to kill me because I've dishonoured the family. So I'm just going to have to suck it up.
Oh,
exactly. I mean, it's horrendous to think.
I can't imagine accepting that.
No, of course not. But it's a different culture, and our dad. Obviously, he would never do anything like that, so, we don't have to think like that, but we did respect our dad.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I'm just saying did because he's not with us any longer. I'm not saying we don't respect him anymore, I'm just saying that because he's not with us any longer, but basically we respected him and, we did as we were told and all the rest of it. So, and obviously I don't know. Well, there's no point in trying to understand it because we're not going to be able to understand it. So her dad left the room. I don't know why, but I think it was maybe because she had turned round and looked at him, and I think that maybe threw him off for a second. So he maybe went to compose himself or something, but he did leave the room, so that gave her a chance to get away. So she escaped through the back of the house, and she actually put her hand through the neighbour's window trying to get their attention. She was banging that hard that her hand went through the window, and then she never got anything from them, so she climbed over a fence and staggered up the road, bare feet and bleeding, from her hand and her wrist. So she ran into a nearby cafe and she collapsed on the floor. She was taken to hospital, and staff who treated her said that they'd never seen anybody so frightened before. Banaz, Banaz was contacted. Ramat, her boyfriend, was contacted, and he rushed to the hospital. And he had the presence of mind while Banaz was lying on a hospital trolley to ask her to tell him exactly what happened and to record it on his phone. So good for him for thinking of that in that situation.
Totally.
You maybe wouldn't think of doing that.
No, you're right.
So she told him that her dad had brought her a drink in a black bag, and she said she opened it and he told her to drink it slowly. So there was obviously something in the drink.
Yeah.
The curtains were closed and it was very dark. He went out of the room, then he came back in wearing Reebok trainers and blue gloves. She tried to leave, but he told her to sit down because she would feel sleepy. She sat down until he went to the other room, and that's when she ran. So the police were called, and she told them the same thing, but the female police officer didn't believe Banaz. She said that she believed this was just a young girl who had drunk too much, because she probably was coming across as being drunk if she'd, been drugged. Thought she was going to be in trouble, so she made up a story. The officer even considered charging Banaz with criminal damage for breaking the neighbour's window.
For God's sake, really?
That is unbelievable.
But surely, after everything that she's been in at the police station before, I mean, alright, maybe in that moment that police officer didn't know that she'd been into the police station, etc.
No, she probably wouldn't have known at that point.
Yeah, but I mean... But still,
I just think because the hospital staff has said we've never seen anybody as frightened as this. So if this is a frightened young woman, surely you're going to realise that no, she's not just scared that she's going to get in trouble. She's not put her hand through a window for no reason. This woman is terrified.
I know exactly.
So,
I mean, especially in the culture that she's from, and she's saying what she's saying, then surely you've got to at least.
I do actually
have an open mind about that.
I do actually wonder if maybe they don't want to get involved because of the culture. Maybe because of
But then I'm always a great believer of that. If you're going to live in a country that isn't predominantly that culture, then then they should have respected our laws that a police officer could come in and investigate something like that. Like, it's different if it's in their country and that's their culture, then maybe their police don't get involved. But this family have come over to our country and living in our ways, and obviously, they can live in, still to go with their beliefs and whatever, but when
it should be respecting the laws.
Yeah, exactly. Respecting the laws.
If a police officer is to come and investigate something, then
yeah, exactly.
I get what you mean, but I just think that.
Well, it's just how many times I've been to different countries, and for one example, I've been to Dubai, and they have certain laws about how women should dress and stuff like that. So I went over there and I respected their culture and their laws, and whilst I was in their country, so
yeah, I totally get that.
That's what I'm saying is and obviously I can still have my beliefs and stuff like that when I'm there, but when I'm conducting myself, I'm not doing anything that I shouldn't be doing. Whereas I think that should be the case, that this family has come over here and they can still live their lives within their culture and what their beliefs are, but when it comes to things, like laws and stuff, then they've got to accept that the police have the right to come in and investigate.
The police do have the right,
if there's something to investigate that's been brought to their attention, then they've obviously got the right to come in and investigate that, basically.
But I think the police. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Of course, I completely agree. But I think the police maybe still don't want to get involved in that, though.
Well, yeah, I mean,
maybe they're scared for their lives. Maybe they think, well, if they're willing to kill people of their own family,
but that's where
or maybe they probably just don't want to be branded.
Sometimes our country, I think, we try to accommodate everybody. It's it's.
Yeah, well, they're totally welcome in our country
and
they
to
are. Live the way that they want to live.
We're too nice. We don't want to step on anybody's toes too much. Because we don't want to, we want everybody to be welcome, which is right, because everybody should be welcome in our country. But I just think sometimes when it comes to, people getting threatened with their lives and stuff like that, it doesn't matter what religion or culture you are, that's not right. And
murder is murder.
Yeah, exactly. And as police, we should be dealing with that.
Yeah. So, when Banaz came out of the hospital, she went to stay with Ramat briefly, and one day her family persuaded her to go and meet them at McDonald's, and they said they wanted to talk about her going home. They did persuade her to go home, but her thinking was, if I run away, I'll die. If I go home, I'll die.
Right.
So she just gave in and went home. So one of the last texts that she sent to Ramat just said, just be careful, Ramat, please, because I don't think I could live a second without you. I love you. And the reason for that text would have been because there had been an attempt to kidnap Ramat the day before. So the following morning, the 24th of January 2006, Ramat couldn't get hold of Banaz, so he reported her missing. The police initially didn't take the report seriously, as her parents portrayed themselves as an easygoing, tolerant family, and it wasn't unusual for Banaz to stay out overnight. So basically, they just lied to the police, saying, "Oh no, she goes out, she stays out," portraying them as not as they're portraying themselves as us, basically, as she goes out, she does her own thing, she goes and stays with her friends overnight, whereas obviously she didn't. She lived under strict rules, but they were telling the police totally lies. So they were like, no, she's not a missing person. She's
just out.
She's probably just stayed over at her friend's house.
Right.
But Ramat, he knew that something had happened, because obviously he knows exactly what's going on. So he kept harassing the police to do something. So an investigation was launched and not one single member of the Kurdish community helped the police. DCI Caroline Good said that hundreds of police must have known what happened to Banaz, but no one spoke up. She said, quote, "We encountered quite a wide scale of attempts and conspiracies to pervert the course of justice. Young men would make false statements, people saying she was alive when in fact she wasn't," end quote. Within a couple of days, the the police, I don't know what I was trying to say there. Within a couple of days, the police found out about Banaz's sister, Bacall. They found out that she was in hiding and whatever. She was estranged from the family, and they actually managed to track her down, which I thought, maybe you're not that well at being in hiding.
Well, no, if you can police can track her down.
So they went to tell her that Banaz had disappeared, and she said straight away she knew that the men of the family had done something to her.
Yeah.
In early March 2006, someone from the Kurdish community had found Bacall and called her to tell her that she would be killed next. So the police, realising exactly how much danger she was in, and these weren't empty threats. They moved her from house to house to house, like they just kept moving her to keep her safe. So at least they did something there.
Yeah.
But they couldn't have done something like that for Banaz though.
Well, exactly. That's where it takes sometimes, it takes tragedies for them to actually start doing something about it, which is a shame, because you think if they'd done it beforehand, then maybe the tragedy might not have happened.
So the police were now throwing all their resources at the case, but they already had the clue to what happened to Banaz from that letter that she had handed into the police station. So she had written in that letter names of the people who were going to be responsible for killing her and her boyfriend. And the reason she knew this was because she had heard her uncle on the phone telling her mum this. So even her mum knew.
That's just...
So from that letter, the police were able to identify some of the people that Banaz was talking about. The letter was very accurate in every detail of what she said about three of these men. They were Omar Hussein, Mohammed Salah Ali, and Mohammed Marid Hama. So those men were all cousins. They were like cousins of each other, and they were cousins of Banaz. So they were all part of the same family. Yeah. So Mohammed Hama was arrested and charged with murder. The reason being that Ramat had positively identified him as being one of the men who had tried to kidnap him and the day before, and had threatened to kill him and Banaz. But they had to be fast because there's only a certain amount of time that somebody can be kept in custody without solid proof that Banaz was even dead, never mind if Mohammed Hama killed her. So they needed to find Banaz's body quick, but her family showed no interest whatsoever in the investigation. They are like, normally if you report your daughter is missing, well, you don't report her, but if she was a missing person, you'd be phoning the police and asking what was going on.
Well, of course, sure.
Nah, they weren't calling the police to ask if their daughter had been found yet. Even when the police were draining the lake opposite their house, not one person came out of that house to sort of see what was happening, see what,
No. They weren't interested.
No.
Or just,
because they knew.
Because they knew, yeah.
Yeah, they knew what happened. But you would be thinking that they wouldn't want the police to know that they knew what happened, so they would make an effort to to be going out and saying, and acting like they didn't know what happened, kind of thing. So two of the men that Banaz had mentioned in her letter were acting suspiciously. Their phones were showing that they were to and fro between London and Birmingham.
Right.
So one of their cars was a hire car, so the GPS showed every place that he had been. So the police just sent up a helicopter to hover around the area where the cars had been parked. And Mohammed Hamash, he was on remand. His phone calls were being recorded, and he was heard describing the murder to a relative. Like, how stupid can you get that? Well, yeah, it's open. I'm saying stupid, you're saying open. Yeah.
Yeah, they are open about it.
Because they think they're doing right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So in some ways, they're not going to hide that, are they?
You're thinking of it as in their culture. I was thinking of it in our culture, it would be stupid, but obviously...
But in their culture, then they're obviously happy to be open about it because, as you say, they think they're doing the right things. So it's another killing, so...
Which is absolutely horrifying, isn't it? To think that people think it's okay to do that.
I know.
So from the conversation, they knew that Banaz had been buried in a back garden. So officers saw a few potential sites from being in the helicopter, but they didn't find anything until Mohammed was heard on the phone asking his relative if he had put the freezer back over the body. So when the officers were looking back at the video that had been taken from the helicopter, they saw a freezer in a back garden. in Birmingham. So they went to that garden and they could see that there'd been a disturbance in the ground. So obviously, when I'm saying they must have moved the freezer, they've obviously buried, and then he was asking if the freezer had been put back on. So they got to that garden, they seen the disturbance, so they dug 6 feet down and they found a suitcase with Banaz's body in it. So 3 men were charged with murder, including her own dad and uncle, and there were 2 other suspects, but they had gone on the run and fled to Iraq. So on the morning of the 24th of January 2006, the suspects had met at Mohammed Hama's house, and then they all went to Banaz's house. Her mum and dad conveniently left the house, so Banaz was in the house by herself. She didn't even have a bedroom in her mum and dad's house, so she actually slept on the living room floor. So her parents left her asleep, and when they had gone, Mohammed Hama, Omar Hussein and Muhammad Ali let themselves in. So poor Banaz woke up to find 3 men entering the room, and she must have known, as soon as she opened her eyes, she must have known what they were there for. So they started slapping her and they raped her over and over. She was vomiting and everything, horrendous. They got a cord and put it around her neck. Mohammed Hama pulled the cord and he was also stamping on her neck and kicking her head. And he actually moaned on the phone to his relative that it took half an hour for her to die.
Oh, God. That's awful.
I know, absolutely horrendous. So Banaz's uncle Ari and her dad Mahmood were given life sentences for arranging her murder. So they didn't actually murder her, they just arranged it. But they got life sentences, so that's exactly. Totally. Mohammed Hama, he pleaded guilty and he also received a life sentence. The other 2 men, as I said before, had fled to Iraq. No one had ever been extradited to the UK from Iraq before, but the police weren't giving up. They were like, nah, we're getting them. So these monsters were over there. I mean, it got back to the police that these monsters were over there bragging and laughing about what they had done. So the team here were like, nah, definitely not. There's no way are they getting away with this. So Omar Hussein was virtually beyond the reaches of the law there because his family are so powerful. He was living with his brother in Iraq, who's a senior police officer.
Oh, shit.
So the problem was a lot of people over there didn't think that he'd done anything wrong, so they were happy to protect him because, as you've been saying, that they don't think there's anything wrong with honour killings. So they saw it as Banaz had brought dishonour to her family and she deserved to be killed. But unfortunately for Omar, he had an argument with one of his brothers, and that brother shot him in the leg with an AK-47 gun, and obviously he had to go to the hospital. So when he got to the hospital, he was arrested.
Oh, wow.
Because, obviously he'd been he'd been protected, but as soon as he was at the hospital, it was like, nah, fair game.
Right.
Arrested. So the other man, Muhammad Ali, he was involved in a car crash, unfortunately for him. So he was arrested by the Iraqi police when he was in this car. He must have been doing something illegal for him to be arrested. So the team from England travelled over to Iraq to get the courts to extradite the 2 men, and it actually took 3 years, but they eventually got them, and they were both given life sentences.
I just wondered, obviously the Iraqi police actually were happy to work with the British police, because obviously, but in their culture, if they find that acceptable, then do people actually get arrested for that in Iraq for that sort of thing?
Well, the thing is, it's not everybody that in that community that thinks that's okay, in that culture, which I'll sort of get onto as well. Okay. So, obviously there is people who think that's okay, and but there, well, I'll tell you what I can't really remember, so I'll just tell you what I've written down.
Okay.
So they all got life sentences, everybody, the 5 of them. So as Banaz had been to the police at least 5 times in the last 4 months of her life, as after her death, the Independent Police Complaints Commission launched an inquiry into police misconduct. It criticised 9 police officers, 6 from the Metropolitan Police and 3 from the West Midlands Police for not doing enough to help her. The Metropolitan Police said, quote, "We have learned a great deal since the Banaz case. We have developed working arrangements to ensure effective and professional standards of investigation and support. All London boroughs have a dedicated community safety unit. Awareness training on honour-based violence is also delivered. We are resolute in our determination to keep victims and potential victims safe," end quote. So they're saying that they're now getting awareness training on honour-based violence, but a little too late for so many people because, as I'll tell you, obviously Banaz is not the first.
No, exactly. And I probably hate to say it, but probably not the last.
Well, I'll tell you something, the number is high. Mm-hmm. We'll get to that in a minute, because I can't remember.
Of course.
So the West Midlands Police said, quote, a range of measures have been put in place which include a policy for the investigation of rape and serious sexual assaults, the introduction of specialist teams, enhanced training in respect of honour-based violence, and close working with partners and the public. We will continually review policies and procedures to ensure the safety of victims is paramount, end quote. So, I did read that some people think that the subject of honour killing should not be tackled for fear of stigmatising entire communities. Mm-hmm. So people are wary about talking about it in case they are branded as a racist. So I did, because I did say to you, didn't I? I was like, I told you I was doing a case, and then I sort of said to you, I don't know if I'm going to do this case. Mm-hmm. And you were like, why not? And I was like, well, the culture, and I don't want to offend anybody. Like, I don't want to be branded as anything, because. But then I thought, well, no, this kind of thing should be talked about. Mm-hmm. Why should, at the end of the day, as we've said, murder is murder. It's not okay. No matter what your culture is, it's not okay.
It's not defined by culture, race, beliefs or anything. Murder, in my eyes, is murder, and it doesn't matter what you believe in. I don't think it's right in any situation or any culture, whatever, it's wrong. It's wrong,
and that's why I thought, well, we're a true crime podcast. We are. Why shouldn't we be bringing awareness to these to any kind of murders?
Well, exactly. I mean, in any culture, I wouldn't think it's okay. So
exactly. So yeah, I mean, people are worried about talking it in case they're branded a racist. But this has been going on for centuries across cultures, across religions, all over the world. So lots of people think that it should be brought out into the open and discussed, and I totally agree with that. Obviously, that's why we're here. But there are so many people within the Kurdish community who are opposed to honour killings, and some do speak out. So Diana Nami, who is from the Iranian and Kurdish Women's Rights Organisation, said, quote, the majority of the community are against that kind of violence, but this small minority, they have lots of power over the whole community to keep quiet, keep silence, not saying anything, because then they will tell you that you betray the Kurdish community. But we are not destroying them. We are defending the rights of people, the rights of women. We are the true Kurdish people, end quote. So she's saying, it is a minority, but that minority has power. Yeah.
So it's like they still obviously have beliefs of, that have always been there, I guess, but maybe a lot of people now have moved on with, times and, but the world's changed and times have changed, and that's not okay, and...
Yeah, so it's not like that, and I think that's what I want to get across. It's not that whole culture. It's not the Kurdish community. It is a minority
within that community.
So yeah,
but they seem to have a lot of power.
Yeah, they want to keep people quiet. Well, and the reason for that is probably because they kill people.
Yeah,
I mean, if you can kill somebody who's in your own family, and I mean, Banaz wasn't just killed; she was raped as well. I'm sorry, but why?
Yeah, why did that need to happen?
Why exactly? I mean, none of it should have needed to happen.
Exactly.
But did her dad agree to that? Or did they just take that, was that off their own backs and they just decided to do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, well, anyway, so according to official statistics, there is one honour killing every 4 weeks in Britain.
Really?
That's what I meant when I said that's high.
So it's still quite...
But the Crown Prosecution Service admits that the real figures are probably much higher, because if you think about it, the most likely people to report somebody missing is the family. But if the family are the ones who are doing the killing, they're not going to report that person missing.
No, that's true.
So there could have been a hell of a lot more people who have just not been reported as missing. And,
that's true.
They've been killed.
Yeah,
so
that's true. They could just basically vanish off the face of the earth.
But even that, one honour killing every month, basically, in Britain. And that's only in Britain. That is horrendous. And that's only like what we know. That's the minimum. Like that's only what's been reported.
There's probably a hell of a lot more, which is horrible.
A statement that Banaz's family made said, quote, Banaz was a lovely, caring, smart and kind girl who loved her family and her family loved her. We miss her very much. We did everything to support her in her marriage, and when she decided to leave him, we supported her. Our children are not oppressed, and they never have been. It's not true that the family have tried to erase the memory of Banaz. It's the family that tends to her grave, end quote. But I will like to say that her grave was blank for many years before they actually put her name and that on it. Don't know what the reason for that was,
right. But how could they say that? Like
when her dad and her uncle and her 3 cousins,
I know,
and murdered her.
And as you said, you know, obviously they supported her marriage, which I think is probably true because they obviously sent her back, and not, I don't know if that you could may not call that support, but they obviously
in their eyes that was maybe supporting.
Yeah, but then they didn't support her when she clearly wanted to divorce the guy. They ended up killing her.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
so I find
they didn't do everything to support her, and when she decided to leave him, we supported her. No, you didn't.
No.
And I said, like, how can the family say that when 5 members of that family are currently serving life sentences for murdering her?
Well, exactly.
So the family also said that it was the police who let Banaz down, not them, and that they did cooperate with the murder inquiry. No, he didn't. They said that Bikal was never beaten and she was never in any danger and she was never attacked by her brother.
So why does she go in hiding then?
Bikal and Rama, Banaz's boyfriend, they're both still in hiding.
Wow.
So
if they weren't in any danger, why would they be in hiding? Exactly.
So there you go. That's a hard one, isn't it?
It is difficult because, as I say, you know, people have different beliefs and live in different cultures, and you know, you're always going to have things that, you know, maybe we don't agree with. There's probably things in our culture that they don't agree with. You know, there's always going to be difference of opinions and stuff. But I still think murder's still murder. Like that.
I respect other people. I mean, as I said, there's loads of cultures, loads of religions, all the rest of it. I respect that everybody is entitled to their own, you know, and what you're brought up in. You know, people maybe don't agree with things that we do, but you know, and that's fine. But when it comes to murder, murder is murder.
Yeah.
You know, we've said it a couple of times already. Murder is murder. And if a woman has dishonoured your family, why do you have to murder her? Why not? If that is the case in your culture that they have to be punished, why can they not be punished?
Well, like disown them or something, or banish them somewhere else.
That would
even
be
that
more.
would be.
I mean, it's still to us that is.
It's still horrible.
Horrible and kind of quite unbelievable. But if that is the case, you know, with honour and everything, why do you not say, do you know what? No, you're not part of our family. Off you go, and
you know, you're on your own. Basically.
Yeah, you're on your own. Yeah. But to actually murder and rape, I mean, it's just, I think the rape thing as well. Just that's horrifying.
No.
But well, it all is. But yeah, I mean. I did decide to do it because, as we said, you know, it doesn't matter what culture you're in when you murder, and at least they're getting punished for it, and that just goes to show that it's wrong because you're serving life sentences for it.
Well, exactly. So they didn't get away with it.
That proves the point. Yeah, they didn't get away with it, thank goodness. But you know, I mean, like to think of all these people who are, this is happening. Like to know that this is happening and. Not just all around the world, but in our country as well. It's horrifying.
It is. It absolutely is.
But anyway, thank you to everybody for listening. And if you would like to get in contact with us, we are on Twitter and Instagram at crime_divers_pod. You can email us at crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. We're on TikTok, YouTube, Crime Divers Podcast. If you would like to join our Patreon, where you can get bonus episodes, 1 a month, 2 a month, take your pick. It's patreon.com/CrimeDivers. If you'd like to buy us a coffee, CrimeDivers. Buy me a coffee. I've lost it. Buymeacoffee.com/CrimeDivers. I was doing so well there.
And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review. Thanks for listening.
Bye. Hi everyone, it's Jill here, and I'm just popping on to apologise for a mistake that I made in the episode. So I said that Banaz's boyfriend Rama was still in hiding, but unfortunately that's not the case, as he actually took his own life 10 years after Banaz's death. So in the article that I found, it said that he never found love again after Banaz's brutal death. Police were called to his home on the 20th of March 2016 after he sent a text to a neighbour saying he was going to kill himself and asking for police to pick up his dog. He was found alive and rushed to hospital, where he died 5 days later in a coma. And he'd attempted suicide twice before that, so he obviously just found it so hard after Banaz died and felt that he had to take his own life. So, yeah, I just want to let everybody know that and to apologise for the mistake that I made.